Hello everyone and welcome to Fallen Angel Customs. I've been toying with the little play on words of Pack Rat for some time, but when I came to actually designing her, my mind would just draw a blank, until suddenly the idea struck me and just wouldn't leave me alone. So, are you ready? Let's get started. I started with this simple coat pattern as it gave me vibes of a traveller's coat. With the pieces cut out, I started by sewing the side pieces to the front, followed by the back pieces to the front via the shoulders. I sewed the sleeves at the shoulder before sewing up the side seams all the way along to the ends of the sleeves. After flipping the sleeves right side out, I sewed up the back centre seam and then flipped it right side out. It was when I did this I realised I'd messed up. I'd only cut out one front piece when I should have actually cut two, so I very quickly corrected this before moving on to the next part of the coat. Remember the traveller's vibe I mentioned? I couldn't resist but to add a little capelet to complete the vibe. Once it was cut out of fabric, I sewed a couple of stitches to hold the darts in place before hemming all the way around the outer edge. I also hemmed the edges and cuffs of the coat at the same time before hemming the top edge of the capelet. With both pieces fully hemmed, I carefully attached the two together at the back collar. I didn't attach it all the way around to allow it to have some fluidity and not restrict any of the doll's movements once it was fastened closed. For the skirt, I took a piece of cotton lace and sewed up the back seam, before adding a running stitch all the way around the top edge. With the running stitch done, I slipped the doll inside the loop of fabric and pulled gently on the thread, causing it to gather all the material. I've lost count of how many times I've snapped thread by pulling too hard when doing gathers. After evenly distributing the gathers along the top, I fastened off the thread to make sure it was attached securely to the doll. I found the perfect little boots tucked away in my stock box, which were in drastic need of a makeover. It took a total of 3 coats of paint to dull down the vibrant pink enough to be able to start building up colour. I started with the socks at the top of the boots before moving on to painting the main body of the boots a brown shade and the furry cuffs a soft cream colour. It took a few coats to get the colours to pop, and along the way I decided to use a slightly more warm toned brown and painted the soles grey to match the laces. going to make the ears and tail completely from scratch, but decided in the end to reuse the ones that were originally attached to the doll. I used my hand drill to put a hole all the way through the original little tail to be an anchor for the wire which I used to make the base frame for the new tail. After bending the wire into the position I wanted it to be in, I used hot glue to build the tail. I chose hot glue instead of clay or milliput because I didn't want the tail to be too heavy and pull her over, especially as I'm using an Enchantimals doll for the base. Though this also had an unforeseen side effect. The tail is completely repositionable. With this discovery made, I set to work painting the glue, taking several coats to build up the vibrancy. Taking some scrap minky fabric that I had left over from different projects I've been working on, I covered the original ears to give them a soft fuzzy look and painted the centres pink. I ended up sealing the tail with some matte varnish to help prevent chipping or cracking the paint when the tail's position is changed. Stand, I already had a plan in mind, so I removed this little plastic case which once held stationery from the recycling and covered the top and bottom with fabric. With them covered, I cut a strip of the same fabric and glued it all the way around the outer edge. I couldn't resist but to add this little scrap of ribbon around the outside before adding a handle to finish the look. One down, 2 more to go. I created a base with resin, and after letting it begin to cure, I added the 2 cases and bottle. The larger case I drilled a small hole into to secure some wire to hold the doll in place. The third case was fun creating bits and pieces for, like the miniature resin dice which were left over from some test pieces I had when I first tested the mould. For the face up, I started out by building blush on her cheeks, being careful not to make it too overpowering since she has a white skin tone. And also on her nose before moving on to my pencils to draw in her features, starting with her eyes, before moving on to her lips, deciding to give her a toothy smile. Before returning to her eyes and filling in the base for the irises, waterline and eyebrows. After sealing the base layer, I began to add more detail to her irises and smile. I kept going back and forth, adding darker colours and more detail with each layer, sealing in between when I wanted to save my progress or the pigment was no longer being picked up. Once the last layer had dried, I added white highlights to her eyes and applied gloss to her lips, as well as a little UV resin to her eyes to really make them shine. Ready to meet her? Meet Pashmina, the little pack mouse. It was so fun watching all her little pieces come together. I think my favourite part has to be her flexible tail and case of many things. The tiny dice and books was super fun, and the base as a whole came out far better than I pictured it would. And I was also super lucky that I could just leave her hair the way it was, just a little bit of a trim to neaten it up here and there. I hope you guys enjoyed my little play on the word pack rat, and I shall see you all again really soon. Until next time!